All right, so today I'd like to talk a little bit more about depression. And this is strictly coming from my point of view because I can't give anyone else a point of view on what someone else's depression is like. I'm sure that it's all very similar in certain aspects, but I'm sure there are a lot of vast differences too. Not only in how we handle our depression, but how our depression makes us feel, both physically and emotionally. Because the one thing I can say that I do know for a fact, all depression is mentally draining. It is the most exhausting thing you could ever do to your mind because it is a mental illness. It is very, very difficult to grasp, and if you don't suffer from depression, it's very, very hard to understand how someone who suffers from depression really feels, because you wake up and you're just already drained if you get any sleep. My depression, it causes my mind to race, and I don't sleep very much. I don't get a full night's rest very often. Usually it's 4 or 5 days in, and then my body is just like, that's it. You're done. It's time to sleep, and then I'll get 7 hours of sleep. Still not in a row. Not I don't get them all consecutively. There's a lot of waking up and breaks in there. There's a lot of things that kind of keep me on edge. But at some point, I get a good 7 hours of sleep, and that's a good night. That's some excellent sleep. But I still, you still wake up tired. You're drained. Your body isn't at its potential. Your mind is definitely not at its full potential because you're just so exhausted with everything that runs through your head. You can't really. Well, some people can't focus. I personally, I focus better when I'm depressed because as long as I have something to do, I get out of my head, which is where I live when I'm depressed. I just stay in my head all the time. It's like it never ends. I think about everything I've ever done wrong, every person that I've ever said something that I shouldn't have said to, every person who's ever hurt me, who said something to me they shouldn't have said. I think about all my transgressions, and so I just sit there and I think about conversations that I could have made better, that I could have done better, things like that. But that's my depression. That's what my depression feels like. To me, it keeps me in my head all the time. So I have to stay busy, like super busy. I have to work myself to death to exhaust myself so that I can get a little bit of sleep. Now, and I say that now because I am sober. When I was not sober, I would just, get drunk or high, and then just be like, well, you can drink enough to make your problems go away, allegedly, but they all come back. They all come back, and they come back with more problems, and the problems get worse. And then you just got to deal with that shit later. But that's what my depression is like as an adult. So what I really want to talk about is what my depression was like as a child. And I'm hoping that maybe some of you parents out there can get a little insight. Maybe there's some similarities between what I would do, how I dealt with things, and your children. Maybe you can get in there kind of early, and maybe you can help your kids before it gets too late. And I hate to say that it gets too late, but there does come a point where it is too late. Child depression is on the rise. Child suicide is if there's one kid that kills themselves, that's too many. and there's a lot more than one. So, those numbers are not, they're not good for our youth. So what I want to talk about is me as a kid, and how I used to isolate myself. Even as a child, I would isolate myself, spend most of my time alone, play by myself. Imagination is a wonderful tool, but it's also dangerous when you have to create your own world that you can fit into. And that's something that I did. I created my own little world that I lived in, and the word I'm looking for, it's escaping me. It seemed normal to me. It was fun to me, but it's not that normal to just be alone. To live in this fantasy world, and as imaginative as it is, you really need people in your life. You need that social construct. You need to connect with other human beings. You need to find people that are more like you, even as a child. So if your kid just isolates himself, herself, and they just spend all their time alone, and they don't really want to be around other kids, they don't want to be around other people, they don't want to be around you, they don't want to be around family, and that's a little bit of a red flag. You may have to force them to be included. You may have to make them go do something. You may have to say, hey, let's or even better yet, whatever it is that they like to do it with them. It may not be fun for you. It may not be something you enjoy, but it's something that's got their interest piqued. And as a parent, you should jump in there and see. Worst case scenario, you lose a couple of hours with your kids. And if losing a couple of hours doing stuff with your kids is a bad thing, man, being a parent's not really what you need to be doing, okay? Because that's how that shit goes forever. Everything doesn't have to be fun for you to be fun for them. So, take a vested interest. Find something. Find a little common ground. Get them involved in something you enjoy. They're still kids, no matter what, and they got to do what they got to do because you're the adult. So, make them do something. Worst case, man, they don't like it. Best case, they find something that they love. Another thing, besides just the isolation, fascinations with death and darker things. I hate to say it, but I like dark metal music, and it shows. Pain is another thing. You purposely, once you learn that whole, the cutting thing, of course, if any person sees a child cutting themselves, you should jump in there. You got to stop that shit, because that's just a precursor to what could happen. But those fascinations with what is considered to be darker, it does have some ramifications on your life as you get older. I still listen to metal music. I still like my rock. Instead of cutting, I switched to tattoos. It's a lot more socially acceptable. Same basic principle, same situation, it's just a little prettier. But those darker tendencies, the obsession with death, movies about murder and death and suicide, those are things that children shouldn't be interested in. Those are things that children shouldn't want to do. They shouldn't be around. And if your kids kind of gravitate towards that, man, get some help. Even if your kid's perfectly well adjusted, and they're a straight A student and they're doing everything right, then they probably got some issues. And shit, it don't hurt to talk to somebody. It don't hurt to sit them down and talk to a professional. I mean, they're not going to tell you stuff because you're their damn parents, okay? So why not, man? Well, I mean, worst case scenario, they go in there and the therapist's like, holy shit, this is the most well-adjusted, stable child I've ever seen in my life. And then you're going to walk out of there feeling like you did a good job. And if they go in there and they go, holy shit, man, this kid needs some help, man, at least you got your kids some help. Because, it's becoming a social norm, which is sad because it sucks that we have to deal with depression as it's just like, it's just whatever. But I can tell you firsthand, it's not whatever. It is debilitating, and you don't get any credit. You don't get, if I was to have cancer right now, and everybody would be like, oh my God, what do we do? For me to go and say, hey, I'm depressed and I'm gonna kill myself, everybody goes, holy shit, you can't do that. You need to stay. And that's where it goes. But if you can help your children when they're young, help them find healthy coping mechanisms, help them feel loved, help them see that they have support, be their number one cheerleader. Because, they're not going to be great at everything. Every kid's not great at everything. They're not all going to be star athletes. They don't all get to play in the NBA. Not everybody gets to be president. So to just kind of dismiss them because they're not good at something, or, well, this is what they really like to do. They really like to play video games all day in their room. And they go play some video games, I mean, shit. What's the worst that could possibly happen? You have fun. I mean, and then, help them go outside, go do something. Give them that support they need. Kids don't need freedom. That's why they're kids. Adults, even some adults don't need fucking freedom. God knows I don't. But you got to be the boss. You got to tell them. You got to help them. It's your job to raise them and train them and teach them and be that parent and that rock and mentor them and help them find things that they like, and get involved in the things that they like. Just take a little initiative. See what your kids are doing. Check in on them. Check the text messages. See what they're telling their friends. Check the hours that they're on the phone. See how late they're staying up. I know I'm old and I go to bed early, and I'm pretty sure my kids stay up later than I do, and I don't hear them. And then, I wake up and they're tired. And why are you tired? Well, I stayed up too late. Well, check on them. See what they're doing. I mean, they're people and they deserve rights, but they're also your kids. And I'm pretty sure nobody wants to see their child in extreme pain because of crippling depression. Nobody wants to see their child sad. Nobody wants to see their child hurt, and most importantly, nobody wants to bury their kids because they didn't take the time to help them out, to stop and look and try to fix their problems. I hope this was a little bit more informative, and a little better put together. And as always, thank you for listening. If there's ever anything I can do to help, reach out, and I'll be more than happy to help anyone I can. Thanks.